Hello and welcome back to Euro Football Daily, where today we're bringing you another one-on-one, this time on one of the most contentious topics in European football, VAR, or the Video Assistant Referee. This video will seek to explain why it was introduced, the rules it will review, the various arguments for and against its implementation, and the impact it has had so far. But before we get into it, please remember to subscribe to Euro Football Daily and hit that notification bell to never miss a video. Rather than analysing specific instances, I will take the more holistic approach, putting forward both sides of the debate and leaving it up to you guys to decide which side you come down on. Without further ado, let's get started. Why was it introduced? VAR was first conceived as part of an ambitious project by the Royal Netherlands Football Association, or the KNVB, called Refereeing 2.0. The aim of the project was quite simple: to reinvent refereeing. In the words of Lucas Brudd, Secretary of IFAB, the organisation responsible for developing the laws of the game, with all the 4G and Wi-Fi in Stadia today, the referee is the only person who can't see exactly what is happening, and he's the only one who should. He continues, "We knew we had to protect referees from making mistakes that everyone can see immediately." FIFA, concerned about what impact technology would have on the game, were initially reluctant to introduce any into football. However, their hand was forced by the infamous Frank Lampard goal that never was against Germany at the 2010 World Cup. And the universally successful goal line technology followed. But the multiple calls to help referees and to introduce more technology fell on the deaf ears of Sepp Blatter, the former FIFA president known for being vehemently against its introduction. However, in October 2015, FIFA's new boss Gianni Infantino heeded the call of much of the football world and decided to begin testing the Dutch proposal for VAR. Testing began in March 2016 during friendlies between Spain and Italy and Germany. During the intermittent 3-year period in which it has been trialled around the world, it has at times attracted some unwanted headlines. During an A-League Grand Final between Melbourne Victory and Newcastle Jets, they couldn't consult whether the winning goal was scored from an offside position because the camera had frozen just before the incident. Similarly, a review in the Liga NOS for offside wasn't possible because a flag had blocked the camera. But people were fairly confident at its introduction. After all, analysis carried out by sports scientists at Belgian University KU Leuven, encompassing more than 800 matches in 20 countries, showed the total accuracy in refereeing decisions had risen from 93% to nearly 99% in the 4 categories that VAR intervenes in. So 3 years on from its introduction, after testing in the Bundesliga, Serie A, Liga NOS and of course the World Cup, not to mention 69 Carabao and FA Cup matches and 15 simulated games, it was introduced into the Premier League for the 2019-20 season. What are the rules? So what exactly is VAR intervening in? Well, having thought that VAR would be used to address most incidents in the game, they quickly realised that would be an unrealistic expectation, and the powers that be reduced its remit to minimum interference, maximum benefit. The common misconception is that VAR was introduced to create perfect decisions in all instances. It is instead, in Brudd's words, trying to avoid scandals. We don't want to create something in football that's constantly interrupting and destroying the game. With that in mind, they decided that VAR should only be used in cases which are clear and obvious, and in only one of 4 key areas. No more, no less. Number 1. Goals. A close offside call is the primary reason to check the validity of a goal, but shirt pulling and infringements can also lead to them being chalked off. It's absolutely imperative to realise that clear and obvious doesn't work in the case of offside or onside. As in the words of Graham Souness, you can't be a little bit pregnant. You are either offside or not. Number 2. Penalties. This is the most subjective and problematic area. Penalties can be awarded or rescinded using VAR if there is a clear and obvious error in the original decision. Number 3. Straight red cards. Violent or dangerous tackles can be penalised using VAR, second yellow cards though cannot. Number 4. Mistaken identity, effectively brought in after that Ox and Gibbs moment. But the Premier League, after studying the trials of VAR in 1819, decided they wanted to make some changes. English referees have been discouraged from using the pitchside monitors whenever possible, in the interest of keeping delays to a minimum. They have also decided to follow a different version of the handball rule. Unlike in the case of the IFAB laws currently in place in the Champions League, which Kimpembe and Sissoko fell foul of in 1819, where any ball hitting the defender's hand outside of the natural silhouette of your body would be given as a penalty, Mike Riley, head of the Professional Game Match Officials Board, says the Premier League will follow a softer interpretation. Despite this, the Premier League decided to disallow any goal which strikes the hand of an attacking player, deliberate or otherwise. We have already had a Wolves goal and a Man City winner chalked off against Spurs for this exact reason. In terms of offsides, the Premier League has made sure all broadcast cameras in the stadium will be available to VAR officials. The largest development is crosshair technology, which will ensure offside decisions are indisputable, even if there is no perfect angle. If a player is leaning, a 3D line will be drawn down from the most advanced part of their body to judge their precise location. The issue here has been that fans can't see what is being assessed, so are kept in the dark for the duration of the decision. But there have been no targets set for how long that decision should take to reach. In fact, Neil Swarbrick, the man leading VAR's implementation into the Premier League, says the priority is not how long the decision will take to make, but rather getting the call correct. The pros and cons. Everyone is in agreement that VAR definitely has its uses. In binary situations, i.e. whether a goal was offside or not, or whether a tackle occurred inside or outside the area, VAR will definitely aid the referees in coming to the correct decision. The issue is that VAR, in the case of handball or penalties, is checking subjective incidents where interpretation will come into it. But that's because VAR is ultimately run by humans in Stockley Park. It's not an all-knowing, perfect decision-making entity. Ultimately, some penalty instances aren't absolutely clear and they still divide opinion for days after. If you're looking at instances that come down to opinion, multiple replays from every angle will help you get to a decision, but whether it is the right one will remain entirely subjective. Another important element to realise is that the final decision ultimately rests with the referee. If VAR reviews a decision and they think their original decision should stand, then it will. On this point, it's important to realise that the VAR team have admitted that subjectivity will remain, and instead it is, in their words, about marrying up the ref's interpretation of events with what is seen in the suite. This basically means that two identical fouls could end up with different outcomes, as they are setting a high threshold when it comes to overturning decisions that remain subjective. Some will argue, what is the point in having this halfway house where we have technology but only intervene in certain decisions in order to protect the referee's integrity? And to be honest, I can see their point. Two of the most commonly held criticisms against VAR, though, are that it breaks up the natural flow of the game and it negatively impacts the atmosphere inside stadiums. On the first point though, would you rather have a 1 minute or even 2 minute delay to the flow of the game, which, let's be realistic, has plenty of stoppages anyway, and get it right more often? Personally, I don't think it's a problem to take a little bit longer to get correct decisions. Decisions that will not just affect the mood of thousands of people around the country, but change games, points, players' lives, and in effect, football history. Renowned football writer Oliver Kay, when talking about Son's offside versus Leicester, wrote in The Athletic, the offside law was introduced to prevent goal hanging. It was not designed to prohibit the run like the one Son made 9 seconds before Aurier's strike. This, for me, is missing the point. Technology has taken us far beyond why original laws were introduced. Just because it was designed to prevent goal hanging doesn't mean it shouldn't now be used to prevent offsides and build-up, however small they may be. But there are undoubted issues nonetheless. The Daily Mail revealed in August that there was a fatal flaw because the cameras they were using only worked at 50 frames per second. As a result, a player running at full speed could move up to 13 centimeters between frames. This means they can't be 100% sure when the ball has left the passer's boot and therefore not sure where the recipient will be compared to the offside line. And a possible 13 centimeters difference is a pretty big distance when Raheem Sterling has already been adjudged to be 2.4 centimeters offside during their game with West Ham. It's really not good enough for the most lucrative league in the world to be shooting with the same frame rate that we use at Football Daily. However, what I will say is that the cameras won't be changed mid-season, as that would be unfair on teams already affected by decisions, so we better put up with it until next campaign. As for the atmosphere in stadiums, this is incredibly important. Fans that attend games are the lifeblood of football, the reason that ultimately it can all exist. The authorities need to make sure VAR's implementation doesn't ruin the matchday experience. But there is no reason it should. Technology has been introduced in nearly every major sport to good effect. Why can't it be a force for good in football too? We need big screens in every stadium. After all, they still don't exist at Anfield and Old Trafford. And we need referees to be mic'd up to the stadium announcer, so whilst fans might not hear the decision-making process, they will at least know what decision is being reviewed. What impact is VAR having? Prior to this season, the VAR testers found there was an 82% accuracy on big calls in the Premier League, which sounds pretty respectable. But with VAR, they found the referees' accuracy increased by 5% to 87%, the assistant referees from 79% to 95%, and the average check time took 84 seconds, or just under a minute and a half. But when offsides are brought into the equation, VAR's benefits are clear to see. The testers found that 41 offside calls would have been overturned in 2018-19, 31 of which occurred when the scores were level or there was a 1-goal difference. These are massive calls, and VAR can certainly help get the majority right, although with the current equipment there are definitely question marks over how accurate it can be. It's obviously difficult to see the immediate impact of VAR in the Premier League with it being so new, but they did release a review after 4 game weeks. At that stage, there have been 227 incidents involving goals, red cards, as well as potential and actual penalty decisions. Of those incidents, 6 were changed by VAR, and according to Mike Riley, 4 more incidents should have been looked at, of which 2 were instantly dismissed by the referee. The Premier League claimed that they were reasonably satisfied with how the new technology was being used, and feels it has got 6 decisions as of the 12th of September right, which would have otherwise been wrong. Whether you believe these overturned decisions, of which there will be plenty throughout the season, are worth the stoppages and crowd confusion, are, like VAR's ruling on penalties, totally subjective. It's up to you to form an opinion on VAR, and please let me know what it is in the comments below. But for now, I want you to take away 2 things. 1. It was designed to help referees reach the correct decision. It is an aid that will not be able to get every decision right. 2. This is because penalties and straight red cards are subjective, and it is run by humans, and it's therefore susceptible to human errors just like the officials on match day. So guys, that was our one-on-one on VAR. What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm sorry it was slightly Premier League centric. We had much more information available about our own league here in England. Let us know how it's going in your country though, and what you want us to see next on this strand. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.